Good evening and a happy Thanksgiving to all. Hopefully all your turkeys turned out nice and juicy. I'm Troy Charles and here are your top stories. A local family had a rough wake-up call this Thanksgiving morning after a lightning strike ruptured a natural gas line and lit their house on fire. Thunder Bay Fire Rescue arrived at a Dog Lake Road residence shortly before 9 a.m. A large blue flame emanating from the side of the house ignited its front deck, and after an aggressive attack, the first responding crew brought the fire under control, preventing it from spreading. Damage was limited to the exterior of the home. No occupants were injured. Patients who have been diagnosed with a terminal illness often deal with anxiety due to being unable to control their own fate. However, in August, Federal Health Minister Patty Hajdu announced exemptions to allow access to magic mushrooms for end-of-life distress. The move was celebrated by many doctors, including some here in the Northwest, but as Adam Riley reports, some doctors are now asking the government to go one step further and allow them to try the drug before advising it for their patients.
You basically go through the experience of what your patient will be going through. So you experience the altered state of consciousness.
Dr. Ryan Patchett-Marble is a physician based out of the Marathon Family Health Team who has a patient who is dying due to a terminal illness and, like many facing an inevitable death, is experiencing mental distress as a result, and normal treatment options are just not working.
So that means medications like antidepressants, anxiolytics, psychosocial interventions like counseling. Studies show those generally aren't effective, or if they are, it's not very much. And this person has tried those and failed those options.
However, this patient has the option of using psilocybin or magic mushrooms as a recently approved method of treatment by the federal government. Patchett-Marble is one of 5 Northwestern Ontario physicians who are lobbying the federal government to allow them access to use the mushrooms themselves. He says by allowing doctors to take training and experience the effects, it will make it easier to help patients through the treatment.
This is not like when I prescribe antibiotics for a urinary tract infection. I don't need experience with the antibiotics. That's prescribing. This, I think, is more akin to being a guide. And if you think of any other analogies of a guide, you want your guide to have personal experience in the terrain they're guiding you through.
Patchett-Marble equates the situation like going on a safari. Do you use the guide who knows everything but has never stepped foot in the region? Or do you go with the guide who has experienced the region firsthand? Federal Health Minister Patty Hajdu was unavailable for an on-camera interview. However, a spokesperson for her office did offer this statement regarding the request by the doctors. Health Canada thoroughly reviews all requests for exemption and makes decisions after taking into account the risks and benefits. We still have much to learn about the risks, which is why the sale and possession of psilocybin is still illegal. Until there is sufficient evidence base, Health Canada will review each request for an exemption on a case-by-case basis. Patchett-Marble hopes the government will accept their case soon due to the amount of time his patient and others have left.
There's all these patients now lining up to get it, but there's very few people trained properly to actually provide it. And I think we need to look at that next. And I'm hoping that the Honourable Patty Hajdu will seriously consider granting the Section 56 exemptions for physicians and therapists so that they can get the training they need to provide the treatment properly and get the best benefit for these terminally ill patients suffering.
Adam Riley, TBT News.
It's a decision that the Anishinaabe Nation is applauding, calling it an example of the need for a complete transformation of the justice system. 6 members of Pikangikum First Nation who faced intermittent 30-day sentences for having impaired driving have won a landmark Charter of Rights and Freedoms challenge in a decision that took almost 8 hours to deliver. Ontario Justice David Gibson found there is a legal regime that treats members of Treaty Number 5 as second-class citizens. To serve an intermittent sentence, the 6 women would have had to travel to and from their remote flying community to the district jail in Kenora each weekend at personal cost. Gibson acknowledged that Pikangikum is a textbook example of the negative effects of colonialism and found the unavailability of an intermittent sentence to on-reserve members of the Pikangikum First Nation and those similarly situated for violation of the mandatory minimum sentence provisions of Section 225 of the Criminal Code violates Section 15 of the Charter. Karen Seeley is a lawyer who represented 2 of the women during the challenge. She says while our clients will still have to serve their sentences, there are other cases waiting for this decision.
Grant a constitutional exemption and grant them a different sentence, because on the second day of submissions in November 2019, the provincial Crown undertook to transport our clients from Akanchikam to Kenora for each and every visit that they must do to serve an intermittent sentence. But this was only with respect to these 6 women. So this doesn't exist for any other person. So there was still a issue that was very live and very important for this area.
Seeley adds, right now the province is looking at keeping occupancy rates low in correctional facilities due to COVID-19, so many facing intermittent sentences have been permitted to arrive at the jail, receive a temporary absence, and then serve their sentence at home under strict conditions. The province has 30 days to appeal the decision. Meanwhile, the court ruling was brought up at Queen's Park as well. Kiiwetinoong MPP Saul Mamakwa cited the findings of Justice David Gibson and asked the province to honor his decision and adopt changes to fix its colonial ways of dealing with Indigenous people in the justice system.
David Gibson's decision reaffirms the need for transformation of the justice system as it pertains to First Nations offenders. Offences that would result in a fine or a warning anywhere in Ontario result in jail time.
We've worked with Indigenous communities to expand and create programs that address the overrepresentation of Indigenous people in the criminal justice system, such as the expansion of GLADU courts and restorative justice programs.
Switching gears now, the Thunder Bay Symphony Orchestra had to hit pause on their 59th season back in March because of the pandemic. But now the symphony has made a triumphant return with shows every second Thursday evening at Hilldale Lutheran Church. Seating is limited to 50 guests, and they're calling this season 59 and a half instead of their 60th, so they can close out last year's season properly. Michael Mahorovich reports.
Following health and safety protocols, the Thunder Bay Symphony Orchestra is back performing, just for a smaller audience. Typically, the orchestra would play in front of hundreds of people at the community auditorium, but now only 50 guests are allowed, so the symphony has moved to Hilldale Lutheran Church for this season. Executive Director Riley Dupuis is just happy they're back performing in any capacity.
We're really embracing this opportunity to have a far more intimate experience with our guests and with our audience. You can see it's a smaller room, it's a smaller space, and we're using a smaller group of musicians as well, so it's a very personal experience for our audiences, but it's fun and it's exciting, and our musicians are excited to be here.
Colleen Kennedy is the principal oboist for the orchestra, and she says they're thrilled to be in this position after months away. Musicians have to wear masks while performing, but because Kennedy plays a wind instrument and can't wear a mask, other precautions had to be taken.
It's certainly a different experience for us musicians. There's all kinds of things that we're doing now that we didn't. For example, we play with masks on. I'm a wind instrument player, so I can't play with a mask on, so instead there's a piece of plexiglass between me and the audience now. Just that social distancing, it means the musicians are farther apart. Now we're 2 meters apart when we're set up. Normally we sit much closer than that.
Performing for a smaller audience gives it all of a more personal one-on-one feel. And as great as that is, as soon as the government allows for larger indoor gatherings, the orchestra is ready to welcome more people into their performances.
We do have shows running until the end of November. 2 shows per night over 2 nights, every other week until the end of November.
We're kind of leading the way, but we're part of, all the orchestras across Canada are looking at this. Anybody who within the health restrictions are able to perform for small audiences are figuring out ways of making it work.
Michael Mahorovich, TBT News.
And it's a Thanksgiving to remember for 2 longtime friends after their names were picked in the Fort William Rotary House lottery draw. The prize, a $589,000 home on South Creek Street.
And the number is 07772. And the name is Shirley McDonnell.
The Fort William Rotary House lottery draw usually takes place on Canada Day, but this year organizers had to make some changes for the 34th annual draw. Committee members met at the River Terrace development where the winner was contacted through a phone call. Shirley McDonnell and Paulette Husfeld's ticket was selected and they were pleased to say the least. The two have been friends for over 4 decades and have been buying tickets for the lottery for almost 20 years.
Text from a girlfriend letting me know that, did you win a house? And I'm in the car, so I pulled over and I don't know, I'm not home. So she said, do you have ticket 772? And I said, sure do. Yeah, so we're just thrilled.
And when Shirley called me, she said, are you sitting down? I said, first thing I thought, what's wrong? You know. And anyways, it's a good thing today.
It is a very good thing.
Sold a total of 14,000 tickets and the proceeds benefit local charities annually. This year, they managed to raise a total of $400,000 for the Thunder Bay Health Sciences Foundation and the Hagee Wilderness Discovery Center. And after the break, Corey Nordstrom will join me on the desk and get you up to date in the world of sports.